Hello, everyone. Welcome to the One Conscious Love Network. I'm here with Lee. Lee and I met. We're part of a networking community on Facebook that connects all these beautiful entrepreneurs in BC. And I'm so glad that we connected because your work is beautiful and fascinating. And so I wanted to give you the
Mhm.
opportunity to share with everyone. So, Lee, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone how it is that you shed your light in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. It is wonderful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to share. I'm Lee Atherton. I'm an end of life and grief coach. Uh, I wear lots of hats. That's one of my primary ones. I'm also a first responder chaplain. I'm a service dog owner who has become passionate about how service dogs can save lives. And I've recently started a foundation to get those dogs into the hands and homes of people whose lives depend on it. And I'm also a um, hmm, so I'm ordained in the United Church of Christ, and usually my ministry is just filling in for colleagues who are on vacation. And through this unexpected, I call it God incidents, right? I don't call them coincidences, and use whatever word you want instead of God, if that fits. Um, Back in January of 2024, I was asked to cover 3 weeks of a medical leave at the
Hmm.
church I'm still at now. The
Oh,
pastor
wow.
never came back, very, very sadly. He ended up passing away. Um,
Mm.
but to be in this space and be an end of life and grief coach for a whole group of people who experience such profound loss has been an amazing journey. Um, so
Yeah.
those are lots of pieces I do. It's kind of, the world works in crazy ways. And before we hopped on to recording, Melanie was sharing with me some of her future thinking and what's next in terms of education. And yeah, it's fascinating to me how the world, whether it's people or just the spaces we're in, knows so much more about us than we do sometimes.
Mhm.
But way back before I even went to get my master's degree, I met a woman who was getting her bachelor's for the same reason as I was, second career women in our 30s. And she knew she wanted to be a hospice chaplain. And she said, our paths were very good friends now. She said, really think you should be a hospice chaplain. And every time she brought it up, I said, I think you are crazy. There is no way on God's good earth I am going to work in hospice. Careful what you say. Several years later, after we both had our first jobs, I was serving a local church, and it ended, so I wasn't working, and she was looking for someone to cover like a month-long vacation she was going on, some extended vacation. And she wasn't finding anyone. She said, "Come on, you can do anything short term." I said, "All right, I'll do it for you." And what's the phrase? The rest is history, right? I fell in
Mhm.
love. Um, I was also doing life coaching at the same time. So there was this dichotomy, life coaching. What's your future? What are you going to do to make life wonderful? All these big goals, which I loved doing. But then there was hospice, which was all about death and dying. And then at one point, I found advertising for an end of life coach, and that just brought the best of both worlds together. And it's just profound.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
So that's
beautiful
kind of a
work.
long and rambling introduction, but
It's beautiful work for sure and much needed. I can imagine that it would help people a lot to transition and to prepare peacefully, right? So, what are
right,
some of the ways that you do that? How do you prepare someone? Or what is it that you do? I guess I shouldn't suggest what you do.
right. I kind of like to say it that I help people live their dying. So when you think of hospice or end of life coaching, there's a sense of awareness that the person is nearing end of life. Otherwise, why would I have been connected with them? And lots of times, if someone gets a terminal diagnosis or for whatever reason come on to hospice, it's like, oh, life is over. Now
Hmm.
I'm dying. But that doesn't mean it's the end.
Hmm.
And I think one of the ways that I love to explain or give an example of what can happen is a patient that I had on my services many, many years ago who he was in his very early 40s. And on Christmas Day, he was healthy as could be, had a
Hmm.
great Christmas, healthy as could be, he thought. On New Year's Eve, he was admitted to the hospital. He had gone to the ER with pain that he could not manage, and he was diagnosed with stage 4 bone cancer and
Hmm.
not given long to live. In fact, he never uh, went home. He
Right.
went to a long-term care facility, which is where I met him in January. And I always talk about people, tell me about your life. What are the joys? What are the regrets? Uh,
Mm.
what do you wish you could accomplish if you could wave a magic wand? And in my conversation with this young man, he shared with me who his favorite author was, and he always, since he was a little boy, had wished he could meet this author.
Mm.
He shared that he had been divorced. He had two children who were 18 and 19, or 19 and 20, right around there at the time. And he was estranged for them. And he wished that hadn't been the case. He regretted that. And he said, if I could do one more thing before I die, it would be to go fishing one last time. So, long story short, he was with us until the springtime. And I actually tracked down that author, learned that his family lived in the town next door, and he said that he would come visit his family and come meet this gentleman at the same.
Wow.
Ooh, that
Oh,
was so cool to grant that wish for him, to
so
make that
sweet.
happen. I reached out to his children and we got to the point where the four of us got together and they reconciled and they said,
Mm.
I forgive you to each other and I love you to each other. And his daughter said, I don't want you dying in a nursing home. Come live with me and die at my home. And then about a week before he died, we did manage to get him in an ambulance and bring him for that last fishing trip.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I mean when I say, how can we live our dying? Right? That's what I want to do for people. And then be there for their loved ones afterwards to help them navigate the grief. It's that
That,
story still gets to me.
that's so beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it was a good 20 some odd years ago that happened.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
Magic though, right? To be able to do
yeah.
those things and to for him to be able to exactly live those days versus waiting
Yeah.
or fearing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you. Thank
So
you.
who do you mostly work with? Do you find you mostly work with the person that is going, or do you find you work mostly with the family around the person? How do you get introduced? Like, how does it work?
Mostly it's with the person who's navigating end of life.
Okay,
Um, but then different pieces of their inner circle end up being included.
right.
Might be a family member, might be a child or a parent, a best friend. Um, I had one client I had. Uh, oh, she was a hoot. She was 94 when she died, and
Wow.
until not long before I met her, she was still working out every day, and um, but she lived in a retirement facility.
Hmm.
So that whole facility became her friends and family. And I
Hmm.
ended up working with her adult children, but also with that community. And
Hmm.
how would they say goodbye to this woman who had been such a force and inspiration for all of them, right? And how could they each in their own ways say goodbye to her?
That's so beautiful. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And then in
amazing.
the world of grief, it's um, a lot of supporting those closest to someone who has died. But then with some of the um, larger groups, whether that's an organization that they belonged to,
Mm.
um, or even for their employer and colleagues, um,
Right.
how do they, who aren't the immediate family, be supported because they're grieving as well? And how do they support each other? Um, and how I had one employer who was so on top of wanting to make it, I was going to say, a good experience for
Right.
all the others who worked there. And good probably isn't the best choice of words, but he was concerned about how do this person's coworkers interact with that person's wife and children?
Hmm.
How can you tell them how they, say I'm sorry and what are the things they should be offering and not saying? And I think
Yes.
that's really spot on.
I think that's so sweet, and it's skills that we don't have, right? We
Right.
just don't. I know my first experience with you know, death was my aunt and my cousin dying, and we went, and it was very traumatic. The whole thing was, I was so ill prepared, and there was no dialogue around this is what's going to happen. It's open caskets, like that's kind of horrible. Yeah. So,
Right.
you don't even know what you're walking into, and oh, we're devastated. It's like, what's happening? So
Right.
I feel like there is a lot of education to be done. And wow,
Mhm.
I'm awed that this employer would think of his employees, but yes, also our
I
own
was. Yeah.
children, family, and all of these groups that we belong to, our friends, and
Yeah.
there's a breadth of knowledge there that would
Yeah.
would benefit so much from, and to be better prepared and to prevent
Mm.
serious mental illness and some
Right.
danger as well in the grief process.
I think some of the best advice I ever got was from my mentor. Um, my kids were 4, 5, and 6, I think, when my mom died, and we were in a three-generation home. So their grandmother lived with them, and she had been diagnosed with cancer and died a year later. So my mentor said, take this time now, when we knew she was going to be dying, to introduce your kids to end of life. I was a secretary at a church. He said, when a member of the church dies, bring the kids to the wake, to the calling hours. Just to go give your condolences to the family. It's not a big deal for you or for the kids. Um, start talking about it as if it were a normal part of life. And then when it comes to their grandmother dying, it won't
Mhm.
be all brand new and scary. They'll
Yeah.
have been there for someone that maybe they didn't even know, but learned that here's what you do when someone dies.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, that's really, really good, right? To be able to educate them and kind of prepare them a little bit better. I know
yeah,
I've interviewed someone actually, her name escapes me right now, but that does end of life coaching for pet parents. And and pet families, and yes, and just
I want to be
fascinating,
connected with that person if you think
right?
of who it
Fascinating work, fascinating.
is.
And yes, you too would love to know each other. I'm gonna have to tag her in the comments.
Yes, I've run pet grief support groups.
Right? That
Yeah,
is so, because for me, from my experience, pet grief is like a whole other type of grief. Like it
it
hurts
is.
so deeply, right?
But
So,
people don't take it seriously if they don't haven't loved a pet before.
mm, yeah,
Your
that's,
dog died last week. You should be over it by now. Seriously? No? Yeah,
and unfortunately, that happens with humans as well, right?
it does. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Oh, this is so fascinating. I feel like we should be having a 3-day seminar. People will just have to keep watching.
Uh, yeah,
So
yeah.
obviously, we're going to put all your links in the comments below. We're going to do all of that. But is there anything else you want to share before I ask you my one question?
I think um, something to share with all the listeners out there in the world is um, death isn't scary. We, I think, as a world community in the year 2025, have made it scary, but people have been dying for forever, and it didn't used to be. So, how can we bring it back to something that we can make a profound experience, like it was for Paul and his family? You know, the gentleman I shared the story about. Yeah,
Oh, I adore that. Absolutely. And I absolutely agree. I mean, it's definitely uh, the next the next chapter, right? And preparing yourself for that is a lifelong prepared and just realizing that we're so fortunate to be here is so essential in
yep,
making death so much easier as well,
yeah,
without regrets and without
yep,
all of these heavy things to deal with at the end, right?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So the one question I always ask everyone is, what is one conscious love to you? It comes.
Oh, yeah. Folks, she asked me this before we started recording, and I just kind of went, hmm. Do you have a couple days for me to answer this question?
He's just gonna
Um,
send me a text back.
you know, one conscious love. I I think to sum it up as best I can in the time that I've been thinking about it is love is all. I have a colleague who she is a church leader and she doesn't talk about God. She talks about love. So if
Mm.
she's reading from the Bible or saying a prayer, she doesn't use the word God. Wherever that's listed, she replaces it with love. And I think that's very true. If you think about it from all religions, from all, I think, human desires, the best world we could live in is a world filled with love. And being aware of that and how we are as individuals, how am I as an individual that I bring that love into reality in my own little microcosm.
Mm.
Um, so I think, yeah, one conscious love is being aware of who am I, what's my effect on the world, and how can I bring love into the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. Love it. Oh,
And
that's
I'll also say that meeting you in person, or we're not in person, but meeting you live, right? One conscious love is your energy.
Oh,
how far apart are we? We're pretty far apart. But I just feel I don't have the words, but your energy is the kind of energy I'm feeling that would bring that love to bear in the world. So
thank you
that's
so
another
much.
piece of
That's so sweet. I
it.
really received that and appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. I
Welcome.
am so happy that we connected. I know we're going to see lots of you here in the One Conscious Love Network at all the upcoming events and everything else. I know this is just the beginning. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
And you. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching. So make sure to connect with Lee. Obviously, you're going to gain a lot from it. And so reach out and say hello and take it from there. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you
Bye
soon.
for now.